Hi and welcome to the Beer Temple. I am Chris Quinn and today I'm going to be tasting the Angel's Share from Lost Abbey. This is a pretty well-renowned beer out of the San Diego brewing Lost Abbey. Actually, Port and Lost Abbey is kind of a joint venture, I guess. They've got the same head brewer, Tommy Arthur. Kind of a polarizing figure in the craft beer scene, but undoubtedly one of the, I'm just going to come out and say it, best brewmasters in the country in terms of a craft brewing pedigree. You know, Port is just riddled with medals, as is Lost Abbey. What they have in common is basically Tommy Arthur. Port Brewing specializes more in the classic craft brewing styles, the big hoppy beers, stuff like that. Lost Abbey more, I'd say Belgian styles in general, this being an exception, but they do a lot of classic Belgian style sour beers, stuff like that. Barrel aging program, bottle conditioned beers, fermenting beers that can age, stuff like that. So what do we have here? We have, looking at my glass, is it dirty? Maybe, whatever. What we have here is a American strong ale, age very strong, like 14%, 11.5%, sorry, not quite 14, so 11.5%, that they then age in either a bourbon barrel or a brandy barrel. I'm pretty sure this is a brandy barrel. I don't know. I apologize for that. I'm pretty sure it's the brandy barrel. This is the latest vintage of it, 2012. This beer will last for quite some time. This beer, I would guess, is maybe about 6 months old, something like that. So still pretty fresh. If it is in fact the brandy barrel, they age it for, I believe, 9 months in the brandy barrels, and you're going to get some really nice, you know, vanilla oak flavors. Not quite as prominent, I would think, as the bourbon barrel aged version would be. Not the same kind of caramel vanilla, but coconut. But who knows? Not gonna need that. Yeah, this is a heavy hitter, and it's interesting because almost always these days when you see that there's a bourbon or some sort of spirit barrel aged beer, it's a stout. And while this is a big strong beer, it's not a stout, it's a strong ale. I'd say probably the most famous American strong ale is Arrogant Bastard by Stone, so to give you an idea. Cork in there. Pours very thick. This is a heavy-hitting beer. Almost looks like, geez, what does this look like? I don't even know. Like some sort of liqueur. I can smell the alcohol from here. I'm getting some, a little bit of like earthiness as well as dark fruit, maybe some prunes. A little toffee and caramel as well. Molasses, like dark molasses, and kind of the sugar. I am getting, I don't think it's the bourbon barrel, I definitely think it's the brandy barrel. And I'm getting some of those kind of, I don't know, I mean, prune, raisin, stuff like that. So, you know, that is grape. It's interesting. It is distinctly grapey. More so than even, I think, a lot of brandies that I've had. I'm curious what brandy it is. Not especially oaky as well. I think that could be because, you know, brandy or cognac barrels are, I believe, French oak as opposed to new American oak, which is what bourbon barrels use. They don't use typically as much char as a bourbon barrel does, so you're not going to impart those same characteristic oak flavors. Well, you're just going to impart them in a different way. And it's definitely here, but it's much more subdued and subtle. There's also a distinct tartness to this beer. Which is interesting, you know. There's like an acidic kick at the end where you might expect to have some hoppy bite to balance out the sweetness. In general, it really lightens up the beer and makes it drinkable. It does have some vinous qualities to it, like a nice acidic wine may. Angel Share, what's the name come from for those of you who may not know? That is a name that I know from kind of bourbon. I believe it might be any kind of whiskey in general. So they age these beers, these spirits in obviously oak casks, oak barrels in these large warehouses. And, you know, I don't think I'm sure maybe they are humidity controlled or something like that, but historically they certainly weren't, and my guess is they probably aren't now either. And in the summer when it was really hot, a lot of this spirit would evaporate out through the barrel, and they would call that loss the angel share, because it would just kind of evaporate up into the air and be gone forever. And you know, in hot summers, you know, the angel share would be larger. And in fact, I know in some of these bourbon barrel beers there is an angel share. You know, you still get some loss, and it depends from year to year how much you lose, and that also certainly in a beer affects the end result. You know, if there's less evaporation, you know, there's going to be a definite change in the profile of the beer, because you know, not everything evaporates. You know, maybe just some of the liquid evaporates and maybe concentrates the flavor out. I'm not an expert in that, but I do know that I've heard brewers say, you know, depending on the year, depending on what the angel share is like that year, it definitely has a distinct difference in the final product. So this beer, interesting take on it, you know, pretty pricey brew. Not my favorite, you know. I don't know. I want more of that kind of chewy, raisiny, tawny flavor to it. A little less of that bright acid in here, and maybe even a little more of the barrel. I mean, it's not really, you know, it's a cognac barrel. It's not a bourbon barrel, but maybe more of the cognac then. Although there's a lot of cognac. I don't know. I think I want it to be fuller bodied, chewier, more toffee, caramel, like big beer influence on here. I want it to be kind of a clash between the wine or the brandy is distilled wine, for those of you who don't know. You know, between the distilled wine and the beer going on here, and I think right now the wine might be winning. Or maybe the bacteria that's souring it. Who knows? Anyway, I'm going to give this beer I've been I mean, everything's been in the 90s lately. I'm going to go a little harsh on this guy. I'll go 87. It's fine beer. It's decent. 87 might even be a little generous, but you know, I could see somebody really kind of digging this beer, getting into it. It's definitely a sipper. It's not something you want to be gulping, but you're gonna have to pay for it. You know, Lost Abbey certainly isn't cheap. They have no problems charging people, you know, 17, 18, 19, 20 bucks for a bottle like this. So anyway, there you have it, guys. This is the brandy barrel aged Angel Share from the Lost Abbey. Please keep your comments and everything coming in. I always appreciate it. Facebook, craftbeertemple.com, all that stuff. You guys know where to find it. And just email me too. I always like hearing from you. So thanks again, guys. Hope you like the show. I gotta go. I've got some pretty good yet expensive brandy barrel aged dark strong stout, dark strong ale to drink. Man, that's the biggest botch I think I've ever done. Anyway, hopefully you do too.